7:35, and you're listening to Rouser Radio. Rouser, based in the White Hart, which is in the centre of rural Lewes in East Sussex in the United Kingdom. And how the hell it ever got to the 27th of June already, I have no idea, but that's what it is. Well, there you are. Ben Sound Buddy is showing us in, as usual, and a lovely little ditty it is, made available to us by the people of Ben Sound, who allow those of us who don't make any money, and those who are charitable and so on, they allow the music to be used for free, which is great, because some of the music is very, very good. Very good indeed. Remember that Ben Sound. If you're looking for music for anything, you can go to Ben Sound. Well worthwhile. Well worthwhile the visit. Okay. It's nice and out this morning. Greeted as usual by the lovely Jane, who lays everything out for me. I walk in and all I got to do is to plug in. It's marvellous. I'm getting very lazy. It's going to be quite nice, but a fairly stiff breeze, apparently. So watch out for your hats. And we can expect around another couple of hours, there's a good chance of rain. Not guaranteed, but a good chance. So that's the day ahead on this 27th day of the 6th month, which is June, in the year 2022, which rockets backwards and forwards and gets no better. I don't have Boris Johnson's job for all the tea in China, all the prats who sit around Jobsworth and holier than thou, taking pot shots at him. I took pot shots earlier, and I do recognise the man's weaknesses, but in the circumstances, who else would put up with all the harassment and the bullying and the yelling and the screaming and the moralising? He does it very well. He's talking about his second term. And of course, that's got up the left nostril of some people. Under fire, you can't possibly talk about your second term. That's arrogance. Well, he is arrogant, but you have to be in that job. You really do. Nice guys come last. And the fact is, we've had previous prime ministers who put on that nice Mr. or that nice Mrs. and actually beneath they'd been as tough as old boot, and used the boot as often as they needed to make sure that they were on song. Right, okay, we'll go to the newspaper headlines in a minute, but first of all, let's go down with your get-up, the Mini Vandals. I love the Mini Vandals stuff. with your get up with the mini vandals. Well, that'll wake you up. That'll get you out of bed if nothing will. And everything else will this morning too. The weather is 19 degrees, and it's going to hover around 19 degrees all week. But today we will get scattered cloud, and the likelihood is some rain later on, somewhere around noon. Perhaps a little bit earlier than that, and it's actually the chance of rain, and not actually defined as going to rain. The we had the temperature. Oh, the date is the 27th. The time is 7:42, and the news is as depressing as ever. But let's go through the headlines as we do. The headlines of the it says the Guardian. I do not give ground on Ukraine, the PM tells leaders. Now, it was a meeting of the G7 over the weekend. Um, they are in meeting in Germany. I think is it Berlin? I suppose. Um, Although it could be Bonn, the former capital, and the PM was talking to the other leaders of the G7. The G7 being the seven most wealthiest countries in the world, according to their GDP, and they meet once every so often to decide on a common policy towards things. But one of the things that they have done is they've decided that they don't like Putin and they don't like the war. And there was a rather chilling item in one of the newspapers over the weekend, and that is that Putin has said that if the G7 and some of the Western leaders back back Ukraine further than he thinks is acceptable, is that he will bomb London. That London will come under attack. And the thing is, with this man, I would be prepared to believe it. A lot of people are poo-pooing Putin. Do not, do not dismiss this man. He has. We may see it as warped, but he's got his vision of what he wants Russia to be, and the first step is invading Ukraine. Not going quite according to plan. To him, I think it was going to be a 5-day war, and here it is entering about his 150th day, and nowhere near the advances that he thought. But nonetheless, he's a nasty piece of work, and don't ever think otherwise. So anyway, the G7 and Boris Johnson is worried that some of the lesser nations are going to give way and start to negotiate and stop supporting Ukraine, which he sees as a bad thing. Is that this war must be the one that draws the line in the sand, and I think he's absolutely right. But he gave a rallying cry and sort of said, "Look, we've got to keep at it." And I think he did get a promise of another £600 million package or something of the sort to help pay for some weapons. The I leaders seek united front away from the turmoil at home. At the moment, both Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden want Western leaders to do more to stand up to Russia and China, as they fear countries may abandon support for Ukraine. The paper says the G7 has agreed a new, I was right, $600 million package, investment pact, to bypass China by funneling money to poorer countries for infrastructure purposes. Well, there you are. That's how it's played out at the top level. The Financial Times says G7 aims to hurt Russia, hurt the Russian war chest with a price cap on crude exports. So what does that mean? The Financial Times says that leaders of the G7 group of major economies are seeking to impose a price cap on Russian oil, in any effort to curb Moscow's ability to finance its war in the Ukraine. Now, here we go. The Daily Telegraph. Biden to block Prime Minister's answer to food crisis. Right, okay. Then after that, America and us are falling out. Um, uh, President Biden will try to block a plan by Boris Johnson to move the world away from biofuel production and instead use the land to grow food as a way of solving the global food crisis, cost of living crisis. And apparently, Germany and one or two more have said Boris's plan is a great plan, but Joe Biden says, no, 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 steady on, steady on. I'm not going to undercut American industry. The Metro, the Full Monty, a little take on the headline from the Full Monty, and is the Metro says that world leaders have poked fun at Russian President Vladimir Putin, as if that's going to bother him one little bit. Um, he has this macho image, and they want to try and puncture that a little bit. And it says Boris Johnson is speaking at the sweltering venue of the G7 summit. And shall we take our clothes off? We have to show we are tougher than Putin. Putin being very much his psyche and in fact his PR campaign always shows him as a tough man, of Mr. Dynamite, Mr. Superman. The Daily Mail, Britain is 33 billion pounds fraud capital of the world. Apparently, all the fraudsters are here because we are easy than most countries to perpetuate fraud. And now that they're running short on the present means of getting money out of pensioners, they are sitting down and trying to decide new ways to con us out of our money. The Sun, Charles cash in bag probe. It's been reported over the weekend that Charles got a payment from the Saudis. I think that is. Uh, Qatar, Qatar. She gave him coins stuffed in a bag. How much was it? 3 million quid. Can you imagine taking that home in your pocket? Is Charles got an aide to do it? Uh, is it true? Sounds very unlikely to me. Sounds very unlikely. And I suppose that if I said, well, it's a typical Sun story, that would mean something. But I, I am not so sure that he would. I mean, Charles can sometimes be daft, but I don't think he'd be that daft to take a bribe in bagfuls of coins. The Daily Express rushed to cash in on homes uh, before the crash. What it's really saying is that people are trying to get this equity holding stuff where they can get cash against the value of their house before the value starts to go. And what they're doing is they're predicting that the bubble is about to burst, that the high price of houses and homes is going to disappear, and the bottom will drop out of the market. The Mirror, the true horror of NHS dentist crisis. What it's saying is that some people, because they can't get a place in an NHS list and they can't afford private treatment, are actually pulling out their own teeth. God help us. I hope it's not true. The Daily Star, Fightmare, and they report a story It says that a man pushed his girlfriend away and attacked two workers as a sign of frustration and boiling over in him. Um, for the weight and the chaos that is the airports. And it is apparently pretty bad at the airports. But why they would pick on that poor soul, I have no idea, out of the thousands and thousands that have surged to the airports. Well, there we are. It is now 7:52. And why don't we, let's see, uh, yes, yes, we'll go back to our good old Met sound, I think, and we'll take ukulele. Ukulele from Ben Sound. Okay, we are now well into the morning. It's 7:55, 5 minutes to 8 o'clock on the 27th of June, 2022. A lot of stuff that's come out of the weekend. I'm not quite sure how long it lasts. The meeting of G7. What does that mean? Well, the world is the Western world anyway. The open market world is broken down into a G7 and a G20. But G7 are the power bloc. They are the most powerful nations economically in the world. At one time, it was G8. Russia joined, very rapidly dropped out. I can't remember why, but probably because it still had a lot to offer from central planning as opposed to open market. But the G7, I think, is Japan, the United States, Canada, France, ourselves, and I'm not absolutely sure who the other two are. I would have to think. Um, but anyway, basically, they meet, they get together, they decide on some policies, wave their magic wand, and it all goes into the melting pot, and out it comes at the other end as a policy and practicality. Yes, yes, yes. That's in a nice world that sees things happen the way that we want them to happen. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that it does happen that way. And a lot of things come along. Um, one of the alarming things over the weekend is the things that are now not reported, as perhaps they should be, is that COVID is rising rather alarmingly again. We've got polio now rampant, not rampant, but it's a threat. We are again becoming a nation and indeed a world that is under threat from viruses and bugs. And those viruses and bugs are very clever because they manage to dive and duck so that they get around any way that we try hard as mankind to prevent them from operating. They even lie in wait, as you can see, from the polio bug virus, which is a pretty dangerous and deadly virus. It does kill, but it maims to a high degree. And when I was a boy in the 1940s and 50s, it was to be feared greatly. They've found a vaccine that handled it, and that cut down on deaths and maimings. And we thought we'd eradicated it, but not a bit of it. It lurks and then suddenly comes surging out when it sees the time is right. And it sees the time is right at the moment. It's almost as if disease and viruses have a human side to them. They look at what's going on in our community, in our society, and they say, now is the time to strike. Now is the time for us to actually get cracking because the opportunity should not be missed. And back they come. What have we got on the shelf? Polio. Okay, let's use polio this week. It is frightening, to say the least. Frightening the way that they actually get around to it. Um, Taking into account a bit of sport, because Glastonbury apparently was a huge success. So I'm told by those who know and understand these things, because I don't. I'm not a Glastonbury type fan. Um, I was always too impatient with the time it would take. But it was a huge success apparently, and this morning, watching the early BBC news, is the presenter and the couple on this morning are better than the couple that have been there for the last week. Thank God that they've been moved on to cover Wimbledon or whatever. But he described it as the Great British Summer. And the Great British Summer really does have incredible things when you think about it. I mean, it is we have horse racing, we have cricket, we have music, we have theatre, we have key exhibitions. We have all sorts of things which are part of and used to be called the season. There's the rowing at Henley, for instance, was part of that season. And so, yes, the Great British Summer, in a sporting sense, is something to be admired, to be looked for, and to be coveted. The cricket, where were they 3 months ago? They were all over the place. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry with a scratch team could have beaten our England side. And where are they now? Kings of the world. They've already won the series against New Zealand. It now looks as if they'll have a clean sweep. At least they stand a chance of doing so. And they're trying very hard. They're trying very hard. New Zealand have to come up with something very special in the bowling today to prevent that. But we've got Wimbledon starting, and all sorts of athletic track meets around the country. Yes, it is. It's a good sporting scene, and that's not so bad when you consider that mostly for 3 quarters of the year, football and rugby dominate the airwaves and the interests, and leave a lot of other sports behind. leave them to fend for themselves. So it's good to see cricket its resurgence, and certainly Wimbledon. I know that a lot of people love Wimbledon, but it does tend to be a slightly niche thing. Yes, people who never followed tennis in all their lives come alive for Wimbledon, but nonetheless, then they go back to sleep. So I'm not sure that it's the tennis they actually come to see. What they come to see is, or what they focus on, is the stars that are likely to, or the stars that we've made, like Raducanu and the Andy Murray and others on the list. So we got quite a bit going on that is pretty good, and it is now 8 minutes past 3. No, it's not. It's 3 minutes past 8, and it's the Monday, the 27th of June, in the year 2022, a year that I think the history books will show has been a complete and utter disaster. A complete and utter disaster. As usual, there is the Boris baiting going on. He said, "I'm looking forward to my next term." And everybody goes, "Yeah, you should show more humility if you voted just to be safe." But actually, who the hell are they going to get instead? There's not a great deal of choice. Not a great deal of choice at all. Oh, they think so. Each would-be, wannabe, thinks that they would be a good premier. But to tell you, it needs some pretty tough talking and some pretty tough backbone for anybody to become premier when everything is just in a mess. It's in absolute chaos. It was several people commentating this morning were trying to make out that it was all Boris's fault. Everything is Boris's fault, and he hasn't addressed the domestic issues and so on. Well, I mean that's as specious as that's rubbish. That's nonsense. But by the same token, is he does need to address these things, and I'm sure that he is very aware of where we are when it comes to the problems that we're facing. The thing is, does he know any better than anybody else how to fix them? And one thing I'm pretty damn sure is, no matter who we get in place of him, if we do, is they're not going to find it any easier. Are they? No, they're not. Oh, I'll tell you what. Let's go to kind of a party with the mini vandals again. I just love these people. almost dropped off to sleep there. That's the Mini Vandals and kind of a party. It is now 7 minutes past 8. Um, we're with you for another 5 minutes or so. This is Rouser Radio out of Lewis, the White Hart, and I've got a bit of a summer cold. I'm starting to sneeze. Shoo! Shoo! Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Sleazy, sleazy, sleazy. I think it's that time of the year that you do start to get colds, don't you? Despite the fact that you've had the jab and you've got patches and you've got all sorts of things. Like a walking laboratory. That's what I am. And I only take a very minimum amount of pills. But nonetheless, it's not stopping me this year of getting a cold, and it only broke out literally in the last half hour. So it was lurking there quite a long time, probably over the weekend, but not giving me much stick. So I shall take a sip of coffee. That'll do work wonders. Mm. But do be a bit careful because catching cold, a summer cold, they say, is by far the worst because you don't know how to combat it. Because outside is so lovely, and inside you're suffering. So we've gone through the sporting calendar today. Plenty to watch, plenty to get involved in if you're a sporting type. If you're a news type, Politico type, all the usual things are there, including cost of living and inflation and so on. At the moment, we're taking up with first of all the G7 and Ukraine, and I'm glad that Ukraine is back on the agenda and it's being brought into our psyche because it's easy to forget once the initial thing is, because this is going to be a war that's going to grind on and on and on, and the misery of Ukrainians is going to continue. And our own response to it is, and that's probably one of the things that would worry me, is we are considered to be global leaders when it comes to the response to Ukraine. That this is where Boris has chalked up real brownie points. We're doing our best to support Zelensky and his. I was going to say paper army, but it's not. It's turned out to have some teeth. Indeed, it has. So we need to be aware that war is not only going on, but the Russians are making little bits of ground each day, getting a bit more territory. It's costing them a hell of a lot, but and that some of the major countries, like America and ourselves, are afraid that they may well find that some of the smaller countries are prevaricating. Will actually either break embargoes or will try to make their own deal with Russia. The fact of the matter is, you may not like what a group is going to do, but if you're in it, you've got to follow the rules. And if the G7 group, NATO, etc., are anti-Russian at the moment, that's the way we have to go. That's the way we have to go. So, there we go. The newspaper headlines, G7, that's the group of 7 most wealthy nations, are urged to back Ukraine as the leaders mock Putin. Yeah, there's been a little bit of a suggestion that they should bare chest some of the leaders because Putin puts on this macho image as the big tough man, not to be denied his fitness and his pecs and all the rest of it. There we are. There we are indeed. All right, it's now 8:12. We've got time just to play one more track before we go. What should we play? Well, there's something here called Young Logos. That's Your Love. Let's see what he has to say. There we are, Your Love, Young Logos. And we are now really out of time. It is 8:15. Rouser Radio is just a little soup song each morning, each weekday morning, readying us for Mirador Television, which is a local television based in Lewis. But we are local, not parochial, so we get involved in all sorts of things. And a little later, we will have Suzanne Mouchot out of New York to let us know what's going on in the Americas. And the whole idea of our little radio is just to tempt you and get you out of bed and let us get a taster ourselves of what's going on in the world, so we can bring it to you in a sensible way. All right. Thank you for being with us. What do you say? Right. Let us say toodle pip, and we'll play out with our usual Ben Sound buddy. Toodle pip, cheerio, see you tomorrow morning.